Hello and welcome back to Choir with Knut. A while ago, I released an episode where I talked about the worst arranging decisions of my career, so far at least. And I got some good feedback on that episode, and I think it's probably quite fun to see someone looking at the sort of stuff that they've learned, what they need to improve on, and so on. So I thought I'd do another episode where I look at some more arrangements I've done, where I've come to discover that perhaps I should have done something very different in retrospect. Before we start looking at the arrangements, I just want to say that at the time of filming, my channel is about to hit 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I just want to take this moment to say thank you, and fingers crossed, we'll keep growing from here. So keep watching, keep sharing, and keep asking questions and commenting. Anyway, let's have a look at part 2 of my worst arranging decisions ever. The first arrangement we're going to look at today is Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. Now, this was done for one of the Guilty Pleasures concerts that London Contemporary Voices put on. And it's not too bad. It's got some problems, but I mean, I went for this like nice dramatic intro, and it actually, dramatically, I think it's good. There's some small musical problems which I'll point out. But yeah, there's a video of this. The sound quality isn't the best because it was recorded in a very chaotic space, and so it's really hard for the sound engineer to isolate the vocals. But it's interesting to have a look, and like it's got me dressed up in in a hilarious like drag queen from space kind of outfit. So it's funny in that sense. And the soloist Ruth is really good, but there are some arrangement things that I would have done differently. Something I tried to do in this arrangement was to have some of the theatrical drama of the original by having sudden dynamics changes. Now, this will be like here, for instance, they're all forte, and then it's suddenly quiet, and then it goes up to F, and then it's quiet again. Like, that kind of stuff is cool. It was tricky in the space to kind of get the full effect of that because, you just had to be heard. There was a lot of people, and everyone was on microphones, and yeah, a lot of these dynamics, unfortunately, didn't come across. And I can't really blame the singers for this. So, for instance here, chorus 1, I decided to have this like weird, distant kind of thing where it's the first chorus, but it's quiet. Oh, what's going on? But again, my practical side was like, ooh, I should have almost the same arrangement in all the choruses. That was not the right call here. I could, these parts are pretty high still. Sopranos can be fine, but altos up on, it's A sharp. That's high. That's high for altos. Tenors up, D sharp. Again, it's too high, and I want them to sing quietly. And so what happens in every performance of Wuthering Heights is the dynamics just aren't observed. Again, not the fault of the singers. It's too high. If I wanted it to be quieter, I should have written the voices a bit lower. Could have just, again, shifted them down one inversion. Would have helped so much. And then I wouldn't be annoyed that the dynamics aren't being observed, because it's going to be easier. It's easier to sing quieter when you're loud. And I think, if I were to go back and change something, that would have been one thing. I don't think the key is the problem in the song. I think the key's fine, because the soloist kind of should really be in the same range as Kate Bush to get that funny voice quality that she has. But then you gotta choose how high you put the backing parts and revoice stuff lower if you want it higher. It's not that hard, but again, it's the sort of thing you can look back on and be like, oh, should have done that. I thought it was a good idea at the time. Didn't really work in practice. Yeah, another problem we kept running into in this arrangement is in the D section. This is verse 2. When you have, and again, this is particularly, unfortunately for the tenors, there's a lot of modal interchange, which is like you're changing out of the key to like notes that aren't in the key, which is fine if you do it correctly. It's not too bad until here, where this is always flat. Every single time we perform this has been flat. And I think I just kind of went a bit too crazy. It's too high. It's not too high. It is loud, but it's awkward. They're going up major third and then down a semitone and then down another semitone, and it's an awkward line. And of course, I notice it more in tenor part because it's the part I have to sing. But yeah, it's you really need to watch out for awkward lines happening because of modal interchange, because essentially you need to be careful with the voice leading. Every line has to make sense in and of itself. If you have consecutive semitones happening in a part, that's usually a danger sign. Avoid it if you can. It's the sort of thing that will cause singers to overshoot or undershoot. That's not their fault. This happens to everyone. Last thing I'll say is that I think I probably could have just ditched the high soprano part here. It's G sharp. It's kind of pushing it. It's not the worst. I could probably have maybe done a D sharp instead, because I wanted this ringing high thing happening, but in practice it just comes out flat. And again, not really the singer's fault. It's above where you really should be writing the sopranos if you're being sensible. Tried it. I mean, it could work fine, but for this particular arrangement, for some reason, it just didn't. So yeah, there you go. It's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to arranging. The next one we're going to look at is, almost ironically, it's actually one of my favorite arrangements I've done. And yet there's something in it that I think really doesn't work. And it really bugs me because I'm actually really happy with this arrangement otherwise. This is Riverside by Agnes Obel. She's a Danish singer. And the song is really, it's a good song. And I think I actually overall managed to make it sound really good for the most part. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the bit that's the problem, because all of it sounds really good. I'm actually really sad that there isn't a recording available of this song, because it works quite well. I managed to bring out different parts where I had to, and I felt like everything just happened without having to struggle in this arrangement. It just worked until the ending. And yeah, if you've sung in LCV and you've sung this arrangement, you'll remember this ending, because it does not work. I was trying to be clever, and that's a big red flag when the arranger tries to be clever, because what I decided to do was, I have this great down by, and then I need to finish it somehow. And I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. I decided to have a bunch of descending major triads, a D flat major, and then this is actually minor, D flat major, C minor, and then B flat major, and then A major. And of course, A minor is the key. So I thought, that's fine. We'll have this, the Picardy third, it's a minor song, but it ends in a major key. But I chose to go there through a sequence of chords that are completely unrelated to each other. It just sounds not good. And not only does it not sound good, it just doesn't work, but it creates these really awkward lines for the singers too. So tenors, for instance, so semitone, tone, tone. Okay, not too bad. Sopranos, tone, semitone, semitone. Again, it's just like pushing it with, was it a semitone now? Was it a tone? I can't remember. And then you don't get any help because it doesn't make any sense. It would have been so much better if I just ended it in unison octaves, literally. So, yeah, there's no recording available online for this, but it's like every time I do it, I keep thinking, this ending sucks. Why did I do this? And the arrangement's so good otherwise. What drove me to this kind of madness? And I'll tell you what drove me to this madness. I wanted to be clever. So, yeah, arrangers should not try to be clever, because that's when they do stupid things like have some sort of weird descending major minor chord thing at the end, which just creates problems. And it doesn't even sound like it ends in the same key it is in because of that, even though it does. It's just... But yeah, again, this is the sort of thing you learn the hard way, third one we're going to look at today. Quite unusual repertoire for LCV. This is Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, and it's actually from the ballet The Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky. And so, it's a classical piece. And I just was asked to prepare this for acapella choir it was for Pandora, the jewelry company. And there's a video of this. It's, it is quite nice. It's this cool flash mob thing happening in a busy station. And then you've got ballet dancers coming out and we're singing the song. And on paper, it's great. This arrangement, there's nothing wrong with the lines in each part. But I wrote this so high. In all parts, it's just so high. First of all, again, big danger sign when tenors start on their D and they're going up in what amounts to almost like this weird chromatic thing. And this isn't too bad, but it's high and quiet. And high and quiet is, you're always asking for trouble when you go for high and quiet, always. But it's high in all parts. Let me see if I can find a good place. Yeah, this is a prime example. Basses all the way up on a D. Okay, not the worst, but it's MP. It's really high, and they go down, and it's not the most obvious line. It goes down to a line, to a note that's not in the scale, and then you have this weird chromatic stuff happening in other parts, and it's high. Tenors are all the way up on E sharp. Sorry, and it's you already have this problem now where they're singing lines that don't necessarily make loads of sense. These aren't too bad. And, the piece is what it is. This is the harmony that Tchaikovsky used, and so you're bound by that in a sense. But it's so high, and so you're faced with these two things happening where they're trying to do these awkward lines in a range that's going to stick out quite a lot. And staying in key there is hard. But then, yeah, you just asking for trouble. Getting down here, it's it's sforzando, but piano, and there's a crescendo, but it's off beats and it's getting really high in pretty much all parts. Check this out. C sharp, E, not the worst. These guys with their chromatic stuff, I guess it's not the worst. Kind of the overarching thing I wanted to get at with this arrangement is, I think I could literally have stuck this arrangement down a third and not even had to change the parts much, because all the parts are written fairly high, and it just would have worked better. They would have let the singers sound a bit more relaxed. Sopranos can still easily cut across up in the top range like this, down on an E. Yeah, fine. I think I was a bit in the mindset of, we're performing this in this really busy station, which means we need to sing high so that we can cut across. But ultimately, acapella voices, you can try to make them cut across, and so sometimes you have to deal with this, but not to the point where you're just writing them high the whole time. I mentioned this in the previous video, but if you're asking singers to be consistently in their high range, they're gonna get tired, and they're gonna start compromising their tuning because they get tired, and it's really hard to keep doing it. Just be a bit kind. Write it a little bit lower. It's fine if, maybe the climax doesn't get the high notes you had envisioned, but at least it's all going to be in tune and they're going to not be exhausted. For this particular gig, we were just doing the one song, but if this had been part of a whole set, especially if this had been surrounded by, say, Freedom and Holding Out for a Hero, the singers would have been dead by the time we finished. It's too much. Yeah, I can say this looking back on it now. It's not the worst arrangement, but I really wish I'd written it all a few steps down. In fact, if I ever publish this score, I will probably transpose it down a little bit, just because it's going to be more accessible and it's going to sound better. Okay, last one we'll look at today is a bit unusual. This is actually a song by Peter Gabriel, San Jacinto. And this was requested for a concert we did with this really good string orchestra called the 12 Ensemble. And so it's actually not just an acapella piece. I can't remember if I wrote it for acapella first or if 12 Ensemble got involved later on. But with this arrangement, so first of all, I kind of like this arrangement, just in terms of the notes and how it's developed and stuff. I think there's loads of good stuff here, and I don't think I would have necessarily changed the notes if I were to change anything here. But take a look at the first thing. The problem is immediately apparent. Look at the syllables I chose here. D is what I imagined. D. That's not a sound in English. No one says G in English. That's a Germanic sound. And I don't know, I can't fathom why I thought this was a good idea. I think I was a bit like, oh, again, I was trying to be clever. It's always a danger sign when the arranger wants to be clever. I was like, ooh, I don't want to use do's and da's. Do's and da's are boring. I want to be cool and different. I'm going to use a different sound. I'm going to use D. And I failed to recognize that, one, it's not the most flattering vocal sound to use. It's a bit like, it's like having them do just S's. For instance, every choir leader will know that the S's are always a problem because they stick out a lot. They're really high frequency. And E and E are very high frequency sounds. Second problem is I'm writing for a bunch of mostly British people. They don't know how to do Germanic sounds. I can do them because I'm Norwegian, but that's not a sound that will come naturally to them. It's so of course the problem immediately was, how do we pronounce this sound? And then I demonstrated, and the only people that could do it pretty much were me and Marit and Therese, because we're from Scandinavia. And so it just became this persistent problem, and I can't understand why I thought this was a good idea. It wasn't. It was really dumb, and really it should have just been do. There is no good reason why it's not do. I tried to be clever, I screwed it up, and like the men, the basses and tenors, are singing do's and dums. It's fine. Could have had the women do da maybe. I think I wanted to like have a different texture so that they're not singing, the same sound. But that's not like this. Da, I would have gone for. Would have sounded so much better. But like, there's a recording. It's fine. But you can kind of tell that the E sound is not the right choice. Again, it's just tried to be clever. Didn't work. If we did it again, I would have just told them to do Da's instead. That's it for today's episode. As usual, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, and be sure to share the video with your friends if you think they'll find it useful. And I'll see you in the next episode of Choir with Knut.